Hi, so this video is going to be on how to make a binding finish for your seam allowance called a Hong Kong binding. It's a really pretty way to just finish your edge without having to serge or to add a lot of bulk. So if you were to buy your binding, I don't normally buy it, but if you were to buy it, it would look like this. You really should do your samples in this, but you can make your own binding so that it matches your materiality that you're choosing with your garment. But just to show you what it looks like when it's bought, this is a really skinny one and it's folded over. So what I've done is I have gone ahead and pressed out my binding because I don't really need the folds that they have. So you would make your bias binding tape look just like this. So I sewed my seams, I pressed them open. Okay, press them really nice from the front and the back, and then I'm gonna just put it on the side like this with right sides together with my binding. I'm just gonna line it up at the edge. Move this out of the way. Okay, and I'm gonna use black thread so that you can see it better, but of course you'd use your matching thread. And you're just gonna use the edge of your foot on the align the edge of your foot with the edge of the fabric. You just want a really small stitch line. You don't need to come in a long way because you want to make this as small as possible. So I'm just going to go ahead and stitch at my regular stitch length. Make sure nothing is puckering. You don't want it to pull the seam allowance. So I'm just lining it up all the way with my foot. Remember, bias tape doesn't ravel. So you'll see why I'm going to do what I'm going to do, but you don't need to worry about the edges of the bias tape because once the fabric's cut on the bias, it won't ravel. The next step would be to go over to your iron and press this. I'm just going to finger press it like that with your seam allowance and the tape towards the right. Okay, so it looks like this on the underside. So now I'm going to actually work from this side, and once it's pressed, then you would want to press it back over this way, right over your seam allowance, and then come back to this side. It should look nice and look relatively thin. If you sewed too thick, you can go ahead and trim away some of it. Now I'm going to line up my needle right into the stitch line it's really like stitch in the ditch. So I just go really neatly, as best I can. You would use matching thread again. You're going to see the black a little bit. And I'm stitching right there in the ditch. So actually you don't see it too much. Oops, it went off a little bit. So when you open it and lay it flat, it'll look nice like that, and just trim. And you'll do the same for your other seam allowance. The only thing when you're choosing this method, you want to make sure that you don't choose a thick fabric for the edge because it does add a little bit of bulk to the edge. And when you go to the outside, you just want to make sure you don't see any real big lumps or anything. So that if you do, then it's not the right choice for this fabric. But the other last thing is you could come back, if you had a lot of excess, you can just trim the excess off. I don't actually, because it's kind of a small piece. So I would just trim whatever's left, because like I said before, it doesn't ravel or fray. Okay, and that's it.